Barakte Hawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rucha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Scant Measure Will Lead to Uproars. Just waiting to see if I hear any sound. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, I got it. I didn't turn on the speaker. Okay. So as I said, the name of this lesson is The Scant Measure Will Lead to Uproars. And what you're looking at in front of you is, I just typed in the riots of the people, because pretty much this is what uproars are. Uproars are protests that are turned violent, because for whatever reason, whether it be wages or whether it be, lack of work or injustices or whatever the case may be. But the main one is going to be the lack of money, because it's going to cause a lot of panic, around the world, because as the dollar is losing its value more and more and the prices keep going up higher and higher, which that's called inflation and eventually hyperinflation. What's going to happen is people are not going to have enough so-called money to be able to keep up with their living expenses, food, home, car payments, electricity, cable, phone, whatever the case may be. And this lesson came through inspiration of a couple of videos I was watching earlier. First, I was watching this video Elder Pastor did, dealing with the bird flu, coming famine. Forget what he said in there. It kind of started triggering my mind towards, towards the wages of these people. Then I was watching Elder Mawatazak's video here, In Transit, Ice 9, and Project Sandman. And that further started getting my mind going to where the Spirit gave me the title for the lesson, which is The Scant Measure Will Lead to Uproars. All right. And what that means pretty much is that, well, matter of fact, let's look up the word uproars first. Uproar, a loud and impassionate noise or disturbance, a public expression of protest or outrage. And pretty much what's going to cause that? The lack of being able to sustain themselves, because the funds that they're receiving or the wages that they're receiving or the money that they're receiving is not enough to keep up with their lifestyle, or not just so much as their lifestyle, but to keep up with, their expenses, their basic, necessities, such as a living quarter and food, and paying their bills pretty much. And that's what's going to cause that outrage. And the reason why is because the scant measure that is being presented, for them to use is not, is not sufficient, because it's not based upon, it's not based upon true money, because true money is, silver, gold to silver, and so on and so forth. So scant, it says barely sufficient or adequate, and that's what's happening. It's barely sufficient or adequate. It says provide grudgingly or insufficient amounts, and the money that they have is not sufficient to keep up, with their, basic necessities, that they have. And that's what's going to cause these different uproars, as you've seen here. And this is done, what's the word I'm looking for? It's done on purpose, for lack of better words. It's not something that, it's just by chance, we happened to miss this, when we were coming together and putting these thoughts together and these ideas together and this plan together, we didn't think about that. We kind of overlooked that. No, it's done on purpose. There's a word for it, but on purpose is good enough. All right. And that's what's going to cause it. That's why this guy, Maya Angelou Bauer, said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who make the laws. Why? Because pretty much if you control the supply of money, you pretty much control everything. Because let's go, before we get into some of these other precepts, let's go real quick to the book of Ecclesiastes. Let's start off in the 7th verse first and the 12th verse. Ecclesiastes 7 and 12. For wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. See? So both wisdom and money are defenses. Because before we go into that, let's go to the same book. Let's go to the 10th chapter and the 20th verse. 19. It says, a feast is made for laughter and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. See? Like the term goes, or the saying goes, money talks, bullshit walks. You know, because if you have a problem, usually you could solve it if you have money. You know, because most problems, you know, need monetary help to solve them. So money answereth all things. So here it says, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. Yeah, because knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of our times and strength of salvation. But money is also a defense because you need it to buy food, to pay bills. And the scriptures say that we would be subject to payments. That would be one of the curses. You know, that's why no matter how hard you work, no matter how much money you stack, you know, you're always behind the 8 ball. You know, if you're an Israelite, unless, you know, you done sold out, you know, or you done just get, you know, sold your soul, you know, and got all up into this system and have, and put away your morals, you know, and want just to live a comfortable life, which eventually is going to come and bite you in the ass in the long run anyways. So the main scripture that I was thinking about was here in Micah 6 and 10. It says, are there yet treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? Because this is exactly what it is. It's wickedness. It's treasures of wickedness. You know, because only a demented mind would think of something like that. You know, create a system to where it pretty much is robbing people of their money. And then they're providing you with paper money, which is worthless, and then charging you interest on it on top of that. You know, and anybody doing something like that would get rich off of the people's backs. You know, and pretty much the reason why they're doing it is to put everyone in slavery to create what's called debt slaves. You know, debt slaves have to work without getting paid because they owe a debt. So in order for them to repay it, they pretty much have to sell themselves into slavery. Just like when you go back into the Egyptian Empire, you know, when the people that the Egyptians had to pretty much sell everything that they had, their cattle, spend their money, and eventually sell themselves and their lands unto Joseph, pretty much to the Pharaoh, in order for them to be given the provisions that they needed to survive. And pretty much this is the same strategy or stranglehold that the international banking families are putting on the world. You know, that's why they're making everything more difficult. Now you used to go to different stores, and you could either get online and pay cash, which, you know, that, you know, with a cashier. But the more convenient way was to go through self-checkout, you know, and you would have options to pay cash, you know, pay with your card, EBT, whatever. And now there's certain places that you go to that in the self-checkout, there's hardly anybody there, but you can't pay unless you have some type of credit card, you know, or debit card or something like that. So they're making it more difficult. Why? Because they're moving everything to a digital-based society. That way, the people that are starving because they can't get what they need have to accept whatever system they put in place in order for them to get something for them and for their families to eat. And this is going to cause desperation. So this SCANT measure is pretty much putting people into debt. You know, debt slaves can only work to pay that loan off. All right, it says, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? Because the scant measure is abominable to Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Because if you are if you are working and you're giving your expertise at whatever it is that you're doing in order to receive a compensation for that, if you're given something that does not compensate you, but in turn puts you more in debt, then that's wicked. Because these FRN notes, Federal Reserve notes, do not get people out of debt because they are a debt-bearing note. You cannot pay a debt off with a debt. All you're going to do is just keep chasing that debt. It'll never go away. And eventually when they shut it down, guess what? There's nothing else to give as a collateral for your debt. So guess what? You have to give up yourself. You know, if you have any inheritance, if you have any assets, you know, you have to give all that over to the international banking families. And that's why they keep moving the national debt up, you know, because they know eventually they're going to come back and collect. They're not worried about that because they have sufficient, you know, money. The scriptures say that they have more than heart could wish. They have sufficient money to where they don't need to collect this debt that is owed. They can pay the debt off and still be filthy rich. So, but they're not worried about that because eventually they know that the ultimate goal is to get everyone into slavery, you know, being a debt slave. And the way that they're going to brand their slaves is through this, the charagma, you know, the MO to the TB, which is the CH to the IP, and everything in between. So we look up the word scant measure, or the word scant. And the word scant is razawan, leanness, scantness, wasting. Leanness, wasting of disease, scantness of measure. And we look the word scant up, and the word scant is barely sufficient or adequate. So what they're doing is they're paying off, you know, the people for their services, and the wages that they're giving them are insufficient because those wages are not worth the ink that they're printed on, you know, which is those worthless pieces of paper, that the only reason why they're working or have any form of value is based off of the belief that people have that it is money. That's why it's called credit. The word credit means I believe. You know, I believe that you're going to pay me this debt. So I'm going to accept, you know, I'm going to accept your word on it. You know, I'm going to take this IOU, and then I know eventually you're going to pay me back. These devils are very, you know, clever in their wickedness, because that's what they were created for, to be on the left-hand side. So before we read any more of this, let's deal with this word measure. And they have no excuse because they have the scriptures. This is why the Lord said that unto the wicked the Lord said, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instructions and castest my words behind thee? And that's exactly what they're doing, because they're not following the blueprint or the instructions that the Lord laid down. They're going about their own, you know, penal code and their own laws and so-called, you know, laws, legislation, same shit. You know, but this is the law. It says Leviticus 19:35. It says, you shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in meat yard, in weight, or in measure. Now, meat yard is to measure out. Like as far as if you might have fabric or land and they come and they measure it out. But you're given less but charging more. So the Lord said you ain't supposed to do that. You know, if somebody comes to you to buy something, you're supposed to give them, you know, the right price, you know, and not rip them off. But this is what these international bankers have done. That's where they took control of the money, because they know that that's where it begins. Control of the money is control of everything else. especially the people. So it says in weight or in measure. When you look up this word meat yard, right? The word there is madah, right? Which is measure, measurement, stature, size, garment. You know, measure, active measurement, measurement size. So it's a portion, a measured portion. All right. Then we go back to the word weight. And the word weight is, in this verse, is mashakwal. Heaviness, weight. And mashakwal, pretty much weight, pretty much is this is a compound word. Mashakwal. Ma is over from, shakwal is shekels or money. So mashakwal is weight. All right. Heaviness, weight. Then you have the word measure, which is the word mashawarah. Mashawarah, which just says measure. And you have different types of measurements. You know, like here it says liquids. You know, there's different forms of measurements. You know, you have dry goods, you have wet, wet goods, so on and so forth. And there were different ways that you measured these different things, but everything had to be done properly. You know, it couldn't be done wickedly, because that would benefit the person selling goods and rob the person buying them that worked hard for that money in order to be able to sustain themselves, sustain their property, sustain their home, sustain, the payments or whatever they had to pay, be able to buy food, support their family, buy clothing for their family, shoes, so on and so forth. But if they're being ripped off of their wages, then they're not able to, function as they're supposed to and provide as they're supposed to. So it says, just balances, just weights, and a just ephah and a just hin shall you have. I am the Lord your power, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. So when we look up this word balances here, the word is what? Or just is tazadak, which is righteous. Balances is ma'azan yum. Scales, balances. So you have a scale or a balance, and it has to be calibrated. You have to, if you put wheat on it, or if you put any type of grain on it, the stones or the weights that were used had to be just. So if you're looking for, in today's terms, if you're looking for a quarter pound or a half pound or a pound or 2 pound, whatever, you should have enough weights on there that measure up to that, and not trick it to make it seem, to make the 1 pound weight weigh 1 pound quarter ounce, 1 pound and a quarter, to where you're giving them less because your weights are not right, so that your pockets can get fatter, but they're really getting ripped off. So you could understand. Not being a huckster or a con man, right? And then I looked up the word weights here, which the word weights goes back to the word abun, which the word abun is stone, because you had stones. But then if you type in, weights, biblical weights, they'll show you like different, you may see some stone ones. There's a scripture that says there was when the Apostle John described the missiles, he said that there was about the weight of a I forget exactly what the word he used, weight of a talent, I believe it was, because you had those different measurements. So stone, large or small, common stone, in natural state, stone as material of tables, so on and so forth, precious stones, weight, see? Plummet, stones of destruction, also made of metal. See, so you had some that were metal. Stone-like objects, hailstones, this is what the Apostle John mentioned. Then it has stony heart, just have different definitions depending on the context of the scripture. Okay? So it's a stone. So everything is supposed to be what? Just. Tazadak. Righteous. not wicked. You have ephah, which was another form of a weight, in ancient times. Then you had a hin, so you had different measurements, different weights and measures. All right, now we go to the same chapter, but we go to the 13th verse. It says, thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor. All right, the word defraud is pretty much to rip them off, it's pretty much like of fraud. The word is ishak, to press upon, oppress, violate. So it's a blatant violation. Let's look up the word defraud. It's a blatant violation. Defraud, illegally obtain money from someone by deception. See, it's a fraud. So when you're defrauding somebody, you're ripping them off. Do violence, get deceitfully, wrong, extort. So going back, it says what? Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him of the wages. Neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. Let's look up this word wages. Because when you look up the word wages, pretty much wages is a compensation for your service. So the word there is pa'ilah, which the word pa'il means work. Yep, work or worker. Pa'ilah, work. Work, recompense, reward, work, wages, because that's what a wage is. Wage is a compensation for your labor, for your services. Wage, a fixed regular payment, typically paid on a daily or weekly basis, made by an employer to an employee, especially to a manual or unskilled worker. And pretty much, it says here weekly basis, right? But when we read the scripture, thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning, because at the end of the day, you were supposed to pay your worker. Whatever he worked, whatever wage he worked for that day, you were supposed to pay him. Especially if he was poor. And when he finished working at the end of the day and you paid him, he was able to go get food, something to eat, and be able to, if he had any bills or whatever the case may be able to pay something on those bills. So that money would have to be paid to them every day. And it would have to be just, so that their work that they put in would be compensated by this righteous wage. And that's not what they're doing here in this raggedy ass place. And I wasn't thinking about this precept, when Elder Muwatazak was doing his in transit, but I said, yeah, this is a good one for the lesson. Haggai 1:3. Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, is it time for you to dwell in your sealed houses? And this house lie waste? Yeah. Because it ain't time for you to sit down in your nice painted apartments, or your homes, just trying to make it in this society. Not saying that if you have a nice place or whatever that you're going off, that you're wicked, because the Lord had blessed some brothers and sisters with, a decent place to stay, with decent wages, whatever the case may be. It's not wicked being rich. It's just what you do with those riches, Just because you have money doesn't mean that, I ain't right because I got all this money. No, that doesn't always necessarily mean that, depending on what you do with that money. But it's not time to be all up into the so-called American dream or in whatever captivity we were in, to be living the life, because it says, and this house lie waste. Yeah, and the house of the Lord lies waste because it hasn't fully been built yet. And it begins with the people. It begins with the house of David. Then eventually over there in the land of Israel, once it's destroyed, once the Lord destroys it, it has to be rebuilt. So we ain't home yet. It says, now therefore, thus saith the Lord, power of hosts, consider your ways, which Jake does not do. You have sown much and bring in little, right? Because you put in much work into something, but what happens? You bring in little. And that's why the term, being behind the 8 ball is always there. Yeah, check that out. Behind the 8 ball meaning. It says behind the 8 ball. at a disadvantage. You know, so we're always at a disadvantage. Why? Because the curses, you know, and the curses are the ones that keep us behind the 8 ball, so that we will not succeed. Because the scriptures say that, you know, part of the curse would be, let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Part of the curse would be, let's see, right here, Deuteronomy 28:20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Now let me see what it says in the NLT. The Lord himself will send on you curses, confusion, and frustration in everything you do, until at last you are completely destroyed for doing evil and abandoning me. Whew, wow. NIV, the Lord will send on you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you put your hand to do, until you are destroyed and come to sudden ruin because of the evil you have done and forsaken him. And that's why it says, cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Because the Lord will blow upon it, like we're reading here in the book of Haggai. You have sown much and bring in little. You eat, but you have not enough. You drink, but you are not filled with drink. You clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. Because the Lord is always, there's another one the Lord said he'll blow upon it. I don't know if is that the same chapter, or is it the second chapter? So if you put wages into a bag with holes, it's going to, you know, continually waste. Just let me see if I could see up here. Silver, glory. Let me try this right quick. Just bear with me. I believe it's in the book of Haggai, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we were right in there. Let me see. Verse 9. Okay, so I just had to go down a little further. So Haggai 1:9. You looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. See? That's why, you know, you get to that point. It's like, man, I just invest this last little bit of money I got right here, and man, I'm home free, because then I'll be able to have enough for whatever. And all of a sudden, something just happened. Boom. Where that little, yeah, I took a little $100. Inside joke. I believe that's one of them Dolomite movies. Yeah, I took your little $100. What the hell with it? I'll tell you that story. I'll tell you the story. No, we were Apostle Gabar and myself. We were working for this delivery company. I believe I forget. Yeah, we were just delivering packages and stuff, and we had put aside $100 because, you know, we had a table, you know, the oils and incense. That was a thing back then. And, you know, we were about to re-up, so that $100 was going to be the re-up money, you know, to get, you know, oils, incense, you know, and they would have made the table nice and fat, you know, to where we could have been straight for a little bit. And that's the time, you know, we was rebels, you know, and I hadn't paid some tickets or something like that, and the cop had pulled me over and arrested me, you know, because I forget exactly what went down, but when they arrested me, you know, I had money on me, right? And then the cops and I think it was a lawyer and the judge, they were in the hallway with me there, you know, and they were like, oh yeah, well, just take 250 from him. I'm looking at it like, but I said, 250? I mean, I ain't got no 250. He said, what you got? I said, I got $100. He said, take his money, take his money. I was like, oh shit, these motherfuckers done ripped me off at a backroom deal. They just totally ripped me off. You know, and then that $100, that little $100 that they took, that was our re-up money for the oil table. You know, so we was behind the 8 ball. But that's how these devils get down. Right in the hallway, the fucking judge never looked at me, not once. He was talking to them, to the cops and them. And then he said, well, get $250 from him. I said, man, I don't have no $250, man. I got $100. No, he said, I don't have no $250. He said, what do you got? I said, $100. He said, take his money. I said, oh shit. I got straight up, just stick up, you know? That's why I say, you know, I took your little $100, which I believe that was from the movie Dolomite. But this just goes to show you. The Lord said, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is waste, and you run every man into his own house. But the point is that we receive wages, but it's never enough to where we can get comfortable, because the Lord don't want us to be comfortable. That's why he said he blew upon it. You know, and just to show you that these devils, the cops, the lawyers, the judges, they're all corrupt. It's very rare you'll find, you know, upstanding, you know, officers of the goddamn law. You know, because like the scripture say, as the officer of a people is, so are the people. So this place is corrupt. So the people that run it are corrupt. All right, so let's go from there. Let's go to Malachi 3 and 5. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages. See? So the Esau is the oppressor of the hirelings in their wages. The widow and the fatherless that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai of hosts. All right. So with that being said, before we go here, let me go to the book of Job, chapter 20, which was one of the main scriptures, and James 5. Because the rich men of the society are the ones that are controlling things, you know. In it, little shout out to my English brothers out there. All right, Job chapter 20. Right, chapter 20 and 20. Wow. You know what? I started at 18. That which he labored for shall he restore. And that's going to be true reparations, restoration, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be. So he got to give back everything plus himself. Because we want our pound of flesh, man. And he shall not rejoice therein. Right, because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. That's the reason why people stack. You know, they stack their dough, stack their chips, or whatever you want to call it. Because they're trying to get to a comfortable position where they can retire and live a good life. So they can live their best life. All right? Because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor. And that's the key. They have oppressed. And oppression comes in different forms. You can oppress somebody physically, or you could oppress somebody financially. And the way that they're doing it is financially. That's why it says, how have the golden city ceased? You know, because the golden city is, when you go into the Hebrew, it says the exactress of gold. When you exact something from them, you're actually requiring it from them. And sometimes the person may not have it to pay. And you're like, nah, you're going to pay for it, or else I'm going to strangle you. I'm going to throw you in jail. Just like the parable of, you know, the Lord that was about to sell that servant, the wicked servant, you know, because he didn't come through with the wages and all that. And he begged him, please, Lord, please have mercy on me. You know, I'll pay you back everything. I'll do this, I'll do that. And the Lord had compassion on him because, he, like he said, he desired him. So he forgave him and his debt. Then another individual came that owed him money, and he didn't forgive him. He said, no, you're going to owe me. I'm throw you and your family in jail and all that. And then when the first, boss, so to speak, heard about it, he said, you wicked servant, didn't I forgive you because you desired me? Should you not have done the same for your brother? And he made him to pay for everything. You see? That goes into, if you don't forgive your brother, the Lord won't forgive you. But you can use that as like a thing with this financial thing and the way that these devils are moving, and the oppression, the exacting of money from those that don't have it and can't provide. So what do they do? Oh, well, you can't provide it. You got to go into captivity. You got to go into slavery. And what are the terms of slavery? Well, you got to take this branding, this MOTB, CH to the I to the P. All right. Because he hath oppressed and forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not. And that's all they do. They take. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired, right? Because that whole NWO is going to go up in smoke when America goes up in smoke. There shall none of his meat be left, therefore shall no man look for his goods. Yeah, because this place is going to be totally wiped out. Ain't going to be nothing else here. It says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, eventually, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, meaning in a position of difficulty. Why? Because his whole shit is going to fall apart, because it's not going to go according to the plans that they planned. They thought, it was going to go one way, but it's going to go the total opposite, because the Lord's going to bring destruction upon them. But they're so proud that they're going to go into their shelters, and eventually they'll be thinking once the smoke clears, they'll come out, and then they'll be able to start anew, afresh, continuity of government. This is why they have records of all different types of stuff, different types of music in different vaults around the world, and shelters, so that once if this whole shithole happens to go in flames, which it will, they can restart anew, afresh. That's their thinking, because their thought is that the house shall continue forever, to all generations. So the word there is yatazar. It says to bind. That's the word for straits. To bind, be distressed, be in distress, be cramped, be narrow, be scant. Yeah, because they're going to be lacking. You reap what you sow. They had the scant measure. Now they're going to be scant. They're going to be lacking. Be in straits, make narrow, cause distress, besiege, because they are going to be besieged. To suffer distress. And that's so in the fullness of their sufficiency, they're going to be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon them. And this wicked here is not talking about the Edomites or just wicked in general. It's talking about workers, laborers. Why? Because the money that they're paying them to compensate them for their labors is not worth the ink that is printed on. Aimal, laborer, sufferer, wretched one, laborer, workman, sufferer, toiling. So these laborers are not getting their due. And the word aimal, the root word goes back to the word labor. So every hand of the wicked shall be upon them. So what's that? What does that mean? That means you're going to have riots, uproars of the people. And that's going to be one of the main factors of these uproars, is the fact that people are not going to be able to afford to buy food and to be able to live in their homes, the basic necessities that they need. See? It's going to get nasty out here, man. You got these clowns talking about the time of Jacob's trouble is gay. I'm like, what demon in hell possessed you to say some stupid shit like that? Then you had some that said, no, there's going to be no Jacob's trouble. But now they're switching it up because they see. Those are the sliding Israelites. They slide, okay, when they see that it's not going in their favor the way they said it, they're going to try to contort themselves and do whatever they got to do to make it seem like they always was with that. And don't be surprised at them same individuals that said that the MO to the TB is not the CH to the I to the P. When it's apparent, which it should be already because it is, but when it becomes more apparent that it is, they're going to, well, yeah, we always knew it was that. We said it wasn't just that. It was this, that, and the other, but we always said it was that. Fucking lowlifes, man. Hypocrites. All right, so it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall be upon him, all the laborers. When he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain upon him while he is eating. And that's going to be the ultimate. So let's go to James 5:1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten because of the way you got them. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. And this is what you see with the people coming against this government and their whole shit falling apart. That is the wickedness that they've done, witnessing against them. And shall eat your flesh as it were fire, because your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, your so-called NWO, your agenda is going to go up in smoke. You have heaped treasures together for the last days. Why? So that they can live comfortably. It says, and then in Habakkuk, it said that they sinned against their soul because they cut off many people. They just to put their nest up on high. Behold, the hire of the laborers who reap down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. Why? Because they defrauded their neighbor in their wages. Crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, which is the Lord of the armies. All right. So this is why you're being judged. Or one of the reasons. You have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you, because we don't have the power to do that. That's why we're relying on Yahweh Bashem Yahushai to come and deliver us and save us. All right. So going back to Micah 6:10, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure, or the lacking or not sufficient measure that is abominable? Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? See, those are the deceitful weights. See, a bun, stones, because they're not, what you're being given is not really compensating you. All it's doing is putting you into debt. You're working to get out of debt, but they're putting you more into debt when they give you those FRNs, Federal Reserve Notes. For the rich men thereof are full of violence, and the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies. You work hard, you get ahead, so on and so forth, but they never tell you that you have to sell your soul. That's why in Revelation 18, when America goes up in smoke, it says slaves and souls of men. Because souls are up for sale in this society. And their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. Yeah, because they tell you one thing, but they mean something else. And being that they have the power of deception, the words that they speak, they can put them together in a way that sounds good. But when you really dissect those words, those words are telling you, you work for me, you're going to be a slave forever. Therefore also will I make thee sick in smiting thee, and making thee desolate because of thy sins. Thou shalt eat and not be satisfied, and thy casting down shall be in the midst of thee. That's right. And thou shalt take hold, but shalt not deliver, and that which thou deliverest will I give up to the sword. Thou shalt sow, but thou shalt not reap. This is pretty much all self-explanatory. Thou shalt tread the olives, but thou shalt not anoint thee with oil, and sweet wine, but not drink wine. Why? Because you're going to be put down. So back here it says again, Job 20:23, when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. And then it goes on to speak about the nuclear missiles, which is going to be the final analysis and the judgment upon you. That's going to be the beginning of the judgment that the Lord is going to bring upon you. Then after the smoke clears, you'll be going into captivity, beginning with you international banking families, from the Edomites all the way through to the other nations. All right. So this has been the SCANT measure will lead to uproars. So with that, I pray that you brothers and your few sisters have been edified. Until the next time I say shalom.